Everyone has a story. And so does everything. Antique, vintage, or curio.
Honestly, so exciting to see a doll like this from the 1800s in such incredible condition.
Like, we've had collections that have sold for, tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Technological innovations, cultural significance, personal memories. What is it that gives each of these unique items their timeless quality?
Can't find these anywhere. No.
Join us as we blow off the dust and breathe new life into the past and the curious. In this episode of The Past and the Curious, we explore the artistry of culinary tools, elegant ceramics, and iconic musical instruments. Unveil the legacy of the Martin D18 guitar.
So growing up, like my father always had a Martin, so it's just kind of we've always been a Martin family, really.
Admire the craftsmanship of the Poole vase.
Poole ceramics began in Dorset, England. When they first started out, they employed different artists, and you definitely wouldn't recognize a Poole vase from the early 1900s compared to something like this.
Discover the history of traditional wafer irons.
The high level of decoration. The face of these two are perfect examples, and they've been elevated to the level of folk art.
I'm Al Kirk, and I've brought in some wafer irons. They were in a box at an auction, and no one else knew what they were, so I scooped them up.
The wafer iron had its humble beginnings in ancient Greece, where cooks first crafted flat cakes between two metal plates attached to wooden handles over an open flame. Though rudimentary, these early tools laid the groundwork for the culinary marvels that followed. In medieval times, these irons evolved into intricate culinary instruments. Metal plates with elegant designs were used to press batter, transforming basic wafers into visually stunning delicacies. This period marked a significant evolution in the design and functionality of the wafer iron. The incorporation of elaborate patterns and motifs into the iron plates allowed for creativity and artistry in cooking, making each waffle not just a meal, but a masterpiece. Its ability to imprint intricate patterns onto batter-elevated wafers from mere sustenance to a form of art, and secured the wafer iron's status as a symbol of culinary and artistic innovation.
Al, welcome to the show. Could you tell us a little bit about what you've brought in for us today?
These are wafer irons. Not waffle irons, they're wafer irons, and there's a big difference. These actually make a very thin, textured, well, kind of like a waffle cone that you would get for ice cream. These ones are about 100, 150 years old. Almost every family farm would have one. They were really useful for using up things around the farm that all mixed farms would have, like eggs and milk, flour. And, maybe if a farm wife had extra something around and she needed to get rid of them and save them, making up a bunch of wafers would be a great way to do it. They would have been made by the local blacksmith. When you look at them, all of that is one piece of iron, and I don't even see a fuse in here, so this could have all have been one piece of iron. The blacksmith has to start with a big piece, get it long, and just keep stretching it out and stretching it out. And then when he gets to the end, he's put this pattern on. Fellows making these would kind of be like auto mechanics today. And you're going to your auto mechanic and saying, put a nice fancy design on it, put my family's initials on it, put the date that you made on it. It's really interesting.
I look at this and I see a piece of folk art. It truly is an art form. These particular two on the table are the nicest I've ever seen. Tremendous decoration and craftsmanship.
These start dying out really quickly, just as farms are beginning to specialize. Back when farms had a few chickens, few cows, some cash crop, these are really useful. Now, if you become just a dairy farm or just a cash crop farm, these start to lose their usefulness. So, 1930s, this really heavy iron thing that you're not using anymore, well, at that time, scrap iron is worth a lot. So I think a lot of them disappeared then.
And that's a shame. Al, could you show us how some of these wafering irons progressed over time?
Well, this is a really good example of starting out, but you can see it's also one piece, but it's smaller. And down at the ends, you actually have a hook on the end to help push the piece together so whatever's in there is caught really tight. It just goes to show how clever the people making these things were getting. They found that they didn't need to be so long. You'd have oven mitts, so even if the handle was getting hot, that didn't matter. So this shape was changing to something like this.
The ability to add the intricate designs and that element of art, it really did take what was a plain functioning piece of cooking hardware to a whole new level. They entered into the arts. And I think that really reflects on the pride in craftsmanship that some of the early, I consider them artisans, like a blacksmith or a carpenter, would have had at the time. These guys took tremendous pride in the stuff that came out of their shops.
So how far back would wafering irons like this actually go?
Well, the idea and the concept goes back to quite significant ancient history, back to the Greek times. You had them progress through the years to what were very practical implements around every Canadian farm, and moving forward into the modern era, you have the fancy sandwich presses, waffle irons, everything protected with Teflon so it doesn't stick. And I think you're talking about the find of a lifetime, being able to find a collection at an auction like you did. The high level of decoration. The face of these two are perfect examples, and they've been elevated to the level of folk art. These would be highly prized by collectors today.
What do you think they're worth?
As a collection, Al, I believe you have well over $1,000. Individually, at auction, you may even surpass that figure. This one dating from Confederation, I believe you could realize as high as $500. The other dated example, in the range of $300 to $400. Al, thank you very much for bringing in your collection today. Tell me, what are your plans moving forward for these items?
Well, as I get older, I'm trying to sell off some of my different collections. And I would really like to find a buyer for the entire collection at once, but they have to stay in Canada.
One of the takes I have is how a simple household item from that era can become a piece that's appreciated as an art form. I liked looking at the wafer irons today because you could see the pride in the craftsmanship.
I hope that people will look around their own homes and wonder what's going to be unknown to future generations. It doesn't do any harm whatsoever to buy something, take it home, research, and have some fun with it.
Thanks for coming on today, Al.
Well, thank you. It was great to be here, and it was very interesting.
Stay tuned. Artifacts await.
The really bold graphics and the incredible use of color. Orange was such a popular color around 1970.
My name is Denise Hodgins, and I brought with me what I believe to be a 1970s pool vase. I'm looking for a little bit more history on the vase and possibility of value for it.
In 1873, Jesse Carter, a builder's merchant and ironmonger, purchased a derelict brick and tile business in Poole, Dorset, with the goal of producing high-quality tiles and architectural ceramics, unofficially laying the foundation for what would become Poole pottery. Jesse's vision was to leverage the rich clay deposits in the area to produce durable and aesthetically pleasing ceramics for building and decorative purposes. By the 1960s, Poole pottery had become renowned for its innovative designs, particularly with the introduction of Delphus ware. This range of artful ceramic tableware, introduced under the direction of Robert Jefferson, was made up of vibrant, hand-painted patterns with a glossy finish. The Delphus collection was innovative for the time because it brought abstract and modernist designs to the forefront of ceramics, a significant departure from traditional pottery styles.
Denise, hi. Thanks so much for coming in today with this beautiful vase. What can you tell me about it?
To be honest, I don't know a lot about it. I know the maker is Poole, The vase came to me actually as a thrift shop find.
What was it that really stood out to you about this piece?
I would have to say it's the color. Just made it stand out on a shelf. I had to have it.
I totally get it. I would have jumped to get this piece as well. What space does this occupy in your life right now?
Well, I had it in my family room for quite some time, but recently we've decided to do a little bit of home decor. So unfortunately, it's kind of moved to the back burner at the moment.
This is a stunning ceramic piece made by Poole, and it's clearly a mid-century vase. You can see by the really bold graphics and the incredible use of color. Orange was such a popular color, particularly in the mid-century period around 1970. It features what appear to be pears, and I've seen a few other examples similar to this that would have been known as pears. So I think it's safe to say that's what we're looking at on here. And there's some beautiful greens, really beautiful black outline, and then what's really bold about this piece is the stark white interior. And I'd love to take a look at the bottom if you don't mind. That's where we can always find out the most about a piece. And here it reads Poole, England, with a great dolphin stamp there and the number 85 and then some initials. So 85 would likely be the actual mold number, and then this would have been the artist. We can also tell from the stamp the time period that this would have come from, and that stamp was used between 1966 and 1980. Pre-1934, Poole ceramics actually had a pink bottom. Post-1937, the ceramics would have a white bottom, and then you could identify the age based on the stamp they used.
Is there any way of telling a little bit more from the markings who might have created it or that sort of thing?
Poole used a very famous artist at the time, Robert Jefferson, to create the Delphi series, and then they would have a series of artists that worked under him using very similar designs to create a beautiful landscape of work. In 1873, Poole ceramics began in Dorset, England. When they first started out, they employed different artists, and you definitely wouldn't recognize a Poole vase from the early 1900s compared to something like this. The area at the time had an abundance of clay, so it was perfect for pottery production, and they really stuck with Victorian styles at the time. Unlike other traditional pottery companies, Poole really embraced experimentation, especially working with different artists, and they were really innovative in that way.
Does Poole still exist today?
Absolutely. Poole pottery is still operating in the UK, and all of the items you can find online are made right in Stoke-on-Trent.
So at the time this was made, what kind of overall acceptance would this piece have?
When this vase series would have come out, it would have been super popular. Everyone is looking for those really pop mid-century pieces to accentuate their home. What do you think, Denise? Would this have been popular at the time?
I think so. I think the color choice in it is what's really would draw people to it.
And even if you had a blank wall but one vase like this, it would truly stand out. So I think it would have been so popular at the time. Denise, prior to purchasing this, had you ever seen anything like it?
No, I hadn't, and have not since I've purchased it. Are collectors looking for things like this?
Oh yeah, big time. This is such a knockout piece. Mid-century is not going anywhere, and this is a true showpiece.
What is it about the Poole pottery that makes it stand out?
Poole pottery truly took glazing from a functional effect to an art form. The living glazes technique used by Poole in this example is actually still used by them today, and it's still considered an innovative technique. Poole really set the standard in ceramics and inspired a new generation of artists to up their pottery game. Poole pottery pieces are super collectible even nowadays, not just for their functionality, but because of their collectability as art pieces. Denise, when you look at this in your collection, what does it make you feel?
It reminds me of childhood. Actually, it probably reminds me of my grandmother a little bit more. She was one of those people that was a little bit more into the psychedelic, bright colors.
I love that you have that connection to it through your grandmother. She sounds like she had a lot of style. Thank you so much for bringing this beautiful piece in with you today, Denise. Can you tell me what is your plan with it moving forward?
To be honest, I'm contemplating maybe sharing it on with somebody else for a change. It deserves to be the focal point in someone's home, and I'm not sure that my changes are going to do it justice.
Ooh, I smell an opportunity.
Just maybe.
I would estimate the value of this piece to be I would say in the $250 to $400 range.
I'm seeing it, online as high as $1,200. I've seen it also a lot lower. So that really does give me a better idea of what it is worth.
Knowing that price, would you be willing to sell it today?
I think I just might.
Ooh, let's have a little chat after. Pool pottery is very much appreciated today. It's a huge collectible. They've been around for over 100 years. The styles have changed quite a bit over time, and people love pretty much every level of pottery that they've created.
I love to collect, especially items that remind me of my past. If someone was getting into collecting today, I'd tell them to pick the pieces that they're drawn to, that make them happy, not necessarily because of its worth or because of who made it.
I loved seeing this pool vase today. It was a perfect example of mid-century pottery, and the graphics and the quality and size of this piece were really out of this world. Thanks for coming on today, Denise.
Thanks for having me.
Our journey through time continues after the break.
The older the Dreadnought, the older the D18, the actual better sound it gives.
My name is Brandon Berger, and I brought in a 1972 Martin D18. I would be interested in this particular guitar because it just sounds really nice to my ear and it fits like a glove.
Founded by Christian Frederick Martin Sr. in the 19th century, Martin guitars quickly rose to fame due to their unparalleled craftsmanship and sound quality. The Martin D18 became the darling of many musical icons. Norman Blake, a bluegrass legend, wielded a rare 1934 D18H, one of only 3 made. More recently, Kenny Smith's mastery with his 1935 Martin D18 showcases the guitar's versatility, cementing its status in bluegrass circles. Even Elvis Presley, typically seen with electric guitars, occasionally strummed a 1942 Martin D18 in his acoustic sets. Far from being just another guitar, the Martin D18 was recognized as a revolutionary step in acoustic guitar evolution. Its exceptional sound and balance didn't just attract musicians, it shaped the industry's future.
Thanks for coming in today, Brandon. Can you tell me a little bit about this?
This guitar, they started making these in the 1930s actually, and some of those examples are worth a lot of money.
How did this come into your possession?
I was playing a gig in a country band playing bass, and the guitar player had the guitar for sale. So he wanted to sell it, and I played it all night. I fell in love with it. I had to have it.
And that's one of the things about these guitars is the sound.
Definitely, yeah. You can't go wrong with a Martin.
This is your classic D18 guitar. If you look at the sides and the back and the neck, it is made of a mahogany, and this is made of a spruce on the front, and that's pretty much your standard since they made these.
Up until more or less the early 30s, Martin had a lot of smaller body guitars, whereas this was kind of, they named it the Dreadnought because of basically the size of it. It was named after a battleship.
It was definitely named after a battleship from the early 20th century, but the influence actually came from Hawaii, and the big guitars and the ukulele and also the banjo. And the reason for that is because instruments and drums, the technology, those instruments were getting louder. And because the music kept getting louder in the back, they needed the stronger, louder guitar. So they made a bigger bass, and that seemed to fix the problem.
The Dreadnought really was kind of a revolutionary design for the time, just due to its size, the amount of sound it outputs, it's got all really nice dynamics, things like that.
They say as well, the older the D18, the actual better sound it gives.
Yep. And really that has to do with like the crystallization of the materials and stuff, like the woods, right? So the sap starts to dry and things like that. It changes state more or less. So who would have actually been behind the Martin?
In 1883, Christian Frederick Martin started this company in Nazareth, Pennsylvania, but he was actually from Germany. His family were furniture makers, and he wanted to go to school and learn how to make instruments rather than furniture, and that's what he did. But the problem he had is he did his studying in Austria. And when he moved back to Germany, they wouldn't let him make instruments because he wasn't taught in German. So instead of taking the course over again in Germany, he packed up and moved to the US. So the company was established in 1833, and for it to still be in business today is phenomenal. And the fact that the family still owns it is even more phenomenal. The D18 itself was made in the early 1930s. So when these things first came out, it was about affordability. We were talking about times of depression, and the fact that people had less money means they could spend less money. So very affordable at the time, but still had that high quality. And the ironic thing is that high quality set the standard so much the famous musicians want those older guitars. So being a guitar enthusiast, what do you think was so innovative about this guitar?
Definitely the size of the instrument, because before that, the bodies of them were a lot smaller. And also too, you get into the 40s and 50s and stuff, you start seeing a lot of bluegrass musicians playing these due to their sound, right? Like they project, they're designed that way.
So Brandon, what do you think the collector appeal of this guitar?
I mean, this particular one's kind of cool because it does have a lot of battle wounds. I mean, it has been thoroughly enjoyed. Like for me as a collector, I would rather have something that looks like it's been enjoyed.
Absolutely. One of the things that makes this so popular as well is that famous artists have been seen using this on stage. They've had their photos taken with this instrument. They're on the cover of their own albums with this guitar. And people see this guitar and they want to use it themselves. There was a writer from Fret Journal, and he said that if he was to hand you a dreadnought, that you would think about it, need it, you would eventually get a divorce over it, sell all your belongings for it, and not let your kids go to college, but you'd still be very happy because you have a dreadnought. What do you think about that, Brandon?
I think it's very true, actually. It's definitely an instrument that you should have in your arsenal, for sure.
And Johnny Cash actually said himself that he feels safe when holding a dreadnought.
Yeah.
So one of the impressive things about this guitar is the long list of people who've played and owned them. And they don't get much more famous than Elvis Presley. And when he started his career, this is the guitar he used, this model. When his guitar went to auction in 2020, it went for a staggering $1.32 million. So what space does this occupy in your life?
This guitar, like I have played in some bands with it and stuff in the past. I don't use it maybe as much as I should nowadays just due to the kind of music that I play, but I mean, I still hold it very dearly, to my heart. So growing up, like my father always had a Martin, so it's just kind of we've always been a Martin family, really.
It's truly amazing how you can have that family connection with the guitar. Brandon, thanks so much for bringing this in today. What is your plans moving forward with this?
Going forward, I plan on, obviously I'm going to keep using the instrument and enjoying it, mainly.
Do you think you would ever part with this?
Well, I would consider it if it ever hit a price point that was, a decent amount of money. Like if it was, say, worth like $10,000 or something, I maybe would sell it, but I mean, for now, no.
It's almost irreplaceable.
To me it is, yeah. So I have a rough idea of what this guitar may be worth. What do you think it's worth, Scott?
Well, I'm looking at the overall condition of it. I think a lot of people who buy guitars, especially at this age, are expecting wear on it. I don't see any cracks, I don't see any breaks. So overall, I'm gonna say it's in pretty good condition. And what do I think this is gonna be worth? It's about $2,000 to $3,000.
I agree with you, but definitely for that amount of money, I definitely think I'm gonna keep it.
You got the family connection. I think that's totally fair. Brandon, thanks so much for bringing this in today. It was a real honor to be able to look at a D18.
Well, thank you for having me. This guitar is important to me just because I love playing it and I have a lot of memories with it, and it's kind of just like a further extension of myself.
It just goes to show you, this was a truly prized guitar.